On Thanksgiving, my parents said, "All the inheritance goes to your sister. You barely help us anyway." My sister smirked. "You were never the favorite." I calmly stood up and announced I'd stop paying their medical bills. But a month later, they called me. "We've decided to leave everything to Emily," Mom said casually, placing her fork down on her plate of turkey. For a second, I thought I misheard her. The scent of pumpkin pie lingered in the air, mashed potatoes were growing cold on the table, but suddenly, the warmth of Thanksgiving dinner felt ice cold. "What?" I put my wine glass down. "The inheritance," Dad added, still focused on his plate. "The house, the savings, all of it." Across from me, Emily swirled her wine, a smug little smile tugging at her lips. "You don't really help them anyway," she said with a shrug. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "I don't help?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Who's been paying for their medical bills? Who covered Dad's surgery last year? Who's the one making sure they can even afford to live in this house?" Mom sighed as if I was bringing up something utterly trivial. "We never asked you to do any of that, Matt." And that was when it hit me. The years of doing everything for them. The nights I spent calculating how to cover my own expenses while still sending them money. The way Emily had never lifted a single finger, yet was always the one they praised. I could still hear her voice from years ago, clear as day. "Mom, look. He's crying." I was 10. I had fallen off my bike, scraped my knee so badly that blood dripped onto the pavement. Emily, just 7 at the time, stood nearby with her arms crossed, watching me struggle to get up. Mom barely looked away from her magazine. "Oh, stop whining, Matt. Emily's the strong one in this family, not you." Dad just grunted in agreement. Even back then, Emily had been their golden child, and I'd been, what? A useful afterthought? Nothing had changed. I ran a hand down my face, forcing myself back into the present. "Are you kidding me?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "You call me every time you need something covered. You literally said you'd be in trouble without my help." Emily rolled her eyes. "You always make such a big deal out of things. If you didn't want to do it, you could have just said no." I stared at her. That same smugness. That same condescension. She had always been like this, since we were kids. She never asked for things. She expected them. And when she got them, she acted like they were owed to her. Slowly, I pushed my chair back and stood up. "All right," I said, buttoning my jacket. Emily huffed. "Oh, here we go. Another dramatic exit." I leaned forward just slightly, my voice calm and even. "Good luck with the bills. Because I won't be paying another dime." Mom's eyes widened. "Matt, wait." "No," I cut her off. "You made your choice. You don't need my help, right? So now, you won't have it." I turned to Emily. "Hope you're ready to actually work for once in your life." Her smirk disappeared. "You can't just walk away. Watch me." And I did. For the first time in years, I left that house without feeling like a doormat, without feeling used. A month later, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, already knowing who it was. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. Then again. By the 5th call, my curiosity got the best of me. I sighed and picked up, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. "Matt, honey," Mom's voice was softer than I had ever heard it. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital, and my body was screaming for sleep. I had barely made it home, kicked off my shoes, and poured myself a drink before the phone started ringing. "About what?" I asked flatly, already knowing the answer. There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Emily, she's struggling. And we could really use your help." I almost laughed. "My help? You mean money? It's not like that, eh?" "Oh, it's exactly like that, Mom." A rustling sound came from the other end, and then Dad's gruff voice took over. "Listen, Matt," he said, impatience creeping in. "We know things got heated on Thanksgiving, but let's be realistic. You've always been the one who took care of these things. We're your parents. You can't just walk away from us." I clenched my jaw, exhaustion pressing down on me. "I can, actually," I said. Silence. Mom tried again, her tone thick with forced warmth. "Matthew, we raised you. We gave you everything." I let out a bitter chuckle. "You gave me a childhood full of guilt and a lifetime of expectations," I cut in. "Meanwhile, Emily got to be your precious little princess. Well, guess what? She can take care of you now." There was a pause, then Mom's voice cracked. "She can't. She doesn't have the money." And there it was. The truth. Emily wasn't useful to them, but I was. And now, for the first time in their lives, they had to deal with the consequences of choosing the wrong child. I became a doctor because I wanted to help people. I spent years grinding through medical school, pulling brutal 16-hour shifts as a resident, surviving on caffeine and 2 hours of sleep. I remember those first years, nights when I didn't even have time to sit down, running between patients, filling out endless paperwork, making life or death decisions while my body begged for rest. And I did it all alone. My parents never helped me financially. While my classmates had their tuition covered by family, I took out massive student loans and worked extra shifts just to afford food. Meanwhile, Emily was partying through college, racking up credit card debt, and treating life like a never-ending vacation. When she dropped out, my parents still coddled her. She's just figuring things out, they said. But when I finally became an attending physician, earning more money than I had ever imagined, guess who suddenly needed my help? At first, I told myself it was just temporary. A couple hundred here, a little extra there. But then it was Dad's surgery, Mom's medications, Emily's unexpected rent crisis. Somewhere along the way, I became their personal ATM. More than half of my paycheck went to them every single month. And the worst part? It was never enough. When I worked back-to-back night shifts, exhausted to the point of collapse, my mother's only concern was whether I had wired her the money for the electricity bill. When I canceled vacations because my hospital was understaffed, my father's only comment was, "Emily really wanted to go to Florida this year. Maybe you could help her out." And when I finally managed to save enough to buy my own apartment, Mom guilt-tripped me into covering their mortgage instead. Not once, not even once, did they ever ask me if I was okay. "You mean the medical bills I was covering before you decided I wasn't part of the family?" I shot back at Dad. "You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." "Matt, please," Mom tried again. "We didn't mean." "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "And so did I. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one left feeling guilty. I wasn't the one being used. And wow, it felt good. The silence didn't last long. For 2 weeks after that phone call, my parents tried every trick in the book. First, there were guilt-tripping texts from Mom. "We're struggling, Matt. I don't know how we're going to afford Dad's medication this month." Then came the fake concern. "You work so hard, sweetheart. Don't you think you're becoming too bitter? We just want to talk." When that didn't work, she escalated to outright demands. "You're a doctor, for God's sake. Money is nothing to you. But we're your parents. You owe us." I ignored every single message. Then Emily called. I stared at my phone when I saw her name pop up. She hadn't spoken to me since Thanksgiving, not a single text, not a single attempt to reach out. And now, all of a sudden, she was calling? I answered out of pure curiosity. "Took you long enough," she snapped the moment I picked up. "Are you seriously ignoring Mom and Dad? You're acting like a child." I sighed. "What do you want, Emily? I want you to stop being a selfish person and fix this mess. Mom is freaking out, Dad is stressed, and I don't have the money to cover all their expenses. You know that." I smirked. Maybe you should have thought of that before gloating about taking the inheritance. There was silence on the other end. Then she scoffed. "Oh my God, are you really that petty?" "Petty?" I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. "Let's talk about what's actually petty. Petty is taking my money for years without a single thank you. Petty is sitting there on Thanksgiving, smirking while Mom and Dad erase me from the will after I paid for their entire mortgage. Petty is only calling me now because your perfect little plan is falling apart. That's not it." "Yes, it is," I cut her off. She took a deep breath, switching tactics. "Matt, look, I get it. You're mad, but you're still part of this family. And family helps each other." I laughed. Actually laughed. "No, Emily. I was an ATM, not family. And ATMs stop working when you try to take too much." I hung up before she could say another word. That should have been the end of it. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally take me seriously. But I underestimated just how desperate my family could get. It was a Tuesday night when it happened. I had just finished a long shift at the hospital, my scrubs still smelling like antiseptic, my feet aching from standing all day. I was exhausted, barely keeping my eyes open as I pulled into the parking garage of my apartment complex. And that's when I saw them. Mom, Dad, and Emily, standing outside my building. Waiting. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "You've got to be kidding me." I parked and stepped out of the car, keeping my expression unreadable. "Matt." Mom rushed toward me like nothing had happened, reaching for my arm. I took a step back. "What are you all doing here?" I asked coldly. "We need to talk," Dad said, his tone clipped. No, we don't. I walked past them, heading straight for the entrance. Matthew. Mom's voice rose in frustration. This is serious. I turned around, folding my arms. Fine. You have 2 minutes. Mom glanced at Dad, who sighed heavily before speaking. Look, we may have been a little harsh on Thanksgiving. I raised an eyebrow. A little. All right, fine, Mom cut in. We should have been more appreciative. But we didn't think you'd react like this. Emily scoffed. Yeah, you're acting like a total opera character. I clenched my jaw. Then why are you here, Emily? If I'm being so dramatic, why do you suddenly care? She shifted uncomfortably. Mom sighed. Matt, honey, we can't do this without you. We're behind on the mortgage. Your father's medication costs are piling up. And Emily is Let me guess, I interrupted. Emily is struggling. Silence. I let out a bitter laugh. You all thought I was bluffing, didn't you? I shook my head. You thought I'd cave, like I always do. You thought I'd feel guilty enough to come running back, wallet in hand. Well, guess what? I meant what I said. I'm done. Mom's expression hardened. So that's it? You're just abandoning your family? No, I said. You abandoned me years ago. I'm just finally accepting it. Dad's face darkened. You're being selfish, Matthew. Am I? I stared him down. Because if I were really selfish, I would have stopped funding this family years ago. If I were really selfish, I wouldn't have drained half my paycheck every month so you could keep this house. If I were really selfish, I would have let you deal with your own mess instead of cleaning it up for you over and over again. Emily crossed her arms. Jesus, Matt, enough with the martyr act. I turned to her, eyes burning. You know what, Emily? I almost feel bad for you. You've never had to work for anything in your entire life. And now, for the first time, you're realizing that money doesn't just fall into your lap. And you hate it. She glared at me, but said nothing. Mom shook her head. You'll regret this, Matt. I exhaled slowly. No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I really don't think I will. I turned and walked into my building, shutting the door behind me. They didn't follow. It took exactly 1 month for everything to start falling apart. At first, they acted like they were fine without me. Mom sent passive-aggressive texts about how they were figuring things out and that Emily was stepping up. I ignored them. Then, the reality check hit. One evening, as I was finishing up at the hospital, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. Emily, you happy now? I stared at the screen. Emily, Mom and Dad had to sell the house. I blinked. I hadn't expected things to spiral this quickly. I typed back. Me, and why exactly is that my problem? Her response came fast. Emily, because you caused this. If you had just helped like always, they wouldn't be in this mess. I exhaled sharply, running a hand down my face. They really thought I was the bad guy here. A week later, I found out the details. Mom and Dad had completely drained their savings keeping up with the mortgage after I cut them off. Bills were stacking up, Dad's medications, overdue utilities, property taxes. Emily, despite all her bragging, couldn't afford a single thing. And since they had zero backup plan, they were forced to sell the house just to stay afloat. I got this information not from them, but from Uncle Robert, Mom's older brother. You did the right thing, kid, he told me over the phone. Your folks have been reckless with money for years. They were just using you as a safety net. So where are they now? I asked. Some cheap rental in town. Now that the inheritance is gone, Emily's really losing it. I smirked. Of course she was. For the first time in her life, she was actually facing consequences. Emily's breakdown. 2 days later, Emily showed up at my apartment. I barely had time to react before she barged in like she owned the place. You ruined everything, she shrieked, throwing her purse onto my couch. I leaned against the kitchen counter, crossing my arms. Hello to you too. Don't start, she snapped. Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom and Dad had to move into some disgusting rental because of you. The inheritance is gone. And, I said flatly. Emily's face turned red. And, we had a plan. Mom and Dad would leave everything to me, and she stopped herself, her lips pressing together. I raised an eyebrow. You would, what, Emily? Silence. I suddenly understood. Oh my God, I laughed. You thought you'd get the house and then sell it for cash, didn't you? Her expression gave her away. That was exactly her plan. She never wanted the house for sentimental reasons. She wanted a quick payday. And now that it was gone, she had nothing. Get out of my apartment, I said, suddenly exhausted. Matt. I said get out. She glared at me, grabbing her purse. You think you're better than us just because you have money? You're selfish, Matt. You're just like those rich snobs you work with. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. No, Emily. I worked my ass off for this. I built my life from nothing while you sat around waiting for handouts. And I'm done letting you treat me like an ATM. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I opened the door, and after a long moment, she stormed out. Mom's final plea. A few days later, it was Mom's turn. She called while I was on my lunch break at the hospital. Maddie, she started, her voice thick with fake sweetness. What do you want, Mom? She sighed dramatically. This isn't easy for us, you know. We lost the house. We have nothing. Don't you feel even a little guilty? I took a bite of my sandwich. Nope. Silence. Then came the real reason for her call. Listen, honey, I was thinking. Your apartment is so big. And it's just you living there. Maybe your father and I could stay with you for a little while? Just until we get back on our feet. I nearly choked on my food. Absolutely not. Her voice sharpened. Matthew, don't be ridiculous. Mom, I cut her off. You made your choice. Now you live with it. She let out a strangled noise. How can you be so cruel to your own parents? Cruel? I repeated. You used me for years. You lied to me. You let Emily walk all over me, and you never once had my back. And now, you expect me to take you in. We're your family. No, I said. I was just a paycheck to you. And now the money's gone. So is your interest in me. Silence. Then she started crying. But I didn't feel guilty. Not this time. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. Freedom. It took years, but I was finally free. No more covering their mortgage. No more paying off Emily's debts. No more constant guilt, manipulation, or fake love that only lasted as long as my bank account was open to them. For the first time in my life, my money was mine. I finally started putting away real savings. I traveled. I took time off work without feeling like I was throwing my family into crisis. And most of all, I felt lighter. They had drained me for years. Now, they were learning what it meant to live without me. And honestly, I didn't miss them at all. It's been 6 months since I cut them off. 6 months of silence. 6 months of peace. For the first time in my life, I had control over my own money, my own choices, my own future. No more guilt-tripping texts, no more desperate phone calls, no more feeling like I owed them my entire existence just because we shared DNA. And you know what? I thrived without them. A life without chains. At first, it felt strange. For years, I had structured my life around their needs. My paycheck was never really mine. There was always another bill, another emergency, another Matt, we need you. So when I finally had financial freedom, I didn't even know what to do with it. I remember sitting in my apartment one night, staring at my bank account. For the first time in years, it wasn't drained by the middle of the month. I had savings. Real savings. And that's when it hit me. I could finally live for myself. So I did. I finally took that vacation I had always put off. A full 2 weeks in Italy, eating my way through Rome, drinking wine in Tuscany, hiking in Cinque Terre. I upgraded my apartment. Furnished it the way I wanted. I cut back my hours at the hospital, actually giving myself time to breathe instead of working myself into exhaustion just to keep my family afloat. I was happy, and most of all, I didn't miss them. The final attempt. One night, after a long shift, I was getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something told me to check. It was a message. Emily, Matt, please call me. It's important. I stared at the screen, debating whether I should even bother. Finally, I sighed and typed back. Me, what do you want? A few minutes passed before she responded. Emily, Mom's in the hospital. I felt nothing. Not shock. Not fear. Not even sympathy. Just exhaustion. I typed back. Me and Emily and she's sick, Matt. You're a doctor. You should care. I sighed. Me. I cared for years, Emily. I paid for everything. I kept you all afloat while you did nothing. And now, after months of silence, you suddenly want my help again? No response. I didn't expect one. And I didn't text again. Choosing myself. I never found out what happened to Mom. Not because I didn't have the resources to check, but because I chose not to. I chose me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. Because here's the thing. I spent years setting myself on fire to keep them warm. And they never appreciated it. They took and took until I had nothing left to give. And when I finally said no, they turned on me. So now, they could live with their choices. And I would live with mine. A life without them. A life where I finally came first. And honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. Final update, answering your comments. Hey everyone, I just wanted to come back and say thank you for all the support and advice. I honestly didn't expect this to blow up the way it did, but reading through your comments really helped me process everything. To those of you who shared similar experiences, you are not alone. Cutting off toxic family is never easy, but sometimes it's the only way to take back control of your own life. Did I do the right thing? A lot of people asked if I feel guilty, if I regret my decision. And the honest answer? No, not even a little. For years, I gave and gave while they took everything without a second thought. They made it clear that they didn't value me as a son or a brother, just as a wallet. And the second I stopped giving, they turned on me. So no, I don't feel guilty. I feel free. But I do wonder, was I too harsh? Should I have handled things differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts. To everyone who supported me, thank you. Seriously, some of your comments made me feel more validated than my own family ever did. Seeing so many people say, "You did the right thing," helped me silence the little voice in my head that tried to make me feel guilty. A lot of you pointed out that my family was never really family. They were users. And that realization, while painful, was also freeing. So if you're someone in a similar situation, feeling trapped by guilt, you don't owe anyone your financial stability or mental health. Your life is yours. To those who call me selfish, I saw a few comments saying things like, "They're still your parents. You should have helped them. You're a doctor. It's just money. Why not give them some?" Family is family, no matter what. And to that, I say, where was that energy when I was working 80-hour weeks just to pay their bills? Where was that concern for family when they laughed in my face on Thanksgiving and called me useless? I didn't abandon my family. They abandoned me a long time ago. I just finally walked away. And if that makes me selfish, then fine. I'd rather be selfish and free than selfless and used. Final thoughts. I'm happy now. I'm saving money for myself. I'm taking vacations. I'm building a future without constantly worrying about someone else's financial disasters. And honestly, I don't miss them. Thanks again for all the advice, support, and even the tough love. It helped more than you know. Wishing you all the best. Matt.